The air was too still when I stepped into the forest near Mount Hood. Birds had gone silent, and something in the trees felt off, like they were watching. I came here looking for peace, but this forest isn't empty, and it doesn't want me here. It started as a solo trip. I wanted to build a bamboo shelter, fish by the stream, sleep under the stars. I was tired of the noise, the screens, the people. This was supposed to be my escape. The Oregon wilds are dense, but beautiful. Thick moss covered the ground. Fog drifted between tall trunks. I picked a small clearing not far from a narrow stream. It looked perfect. The first day was calm. I cut some bamboo poles I brought with me and found a natural dip in the land to anchor the frame. There were signs of deer, maybe raccoons, normal wildlife. I made a fire ring from stones. My hands were blistered, but I liked it. Being useful, being alone. A few hours before dusk, I went to the stream. It moved slow and dark under overhanging ferns. I spotted fish, small ones, darting in the shallows. I used some paracord and a safety pin to make a quick line, baited it with a crushed bug. I caught 2 before sunset, enough for a simple meal. That night, as the fire crackled and shadows thickened, I started hearing it. Snapping. A branch, about 10 feet from the shelter. Then silence. Then a low thud, like a step. I thought maybe a bear or an elk. I made noise, waved my arms, shined my flashlight out past the tree line. Nothing. I tried to sleep. The fish cooked too fast, and the meat was soft, but I didn't eat much. My stomach turned. I kept waking. The fire had died down, and I swear I heard breathing. Close. Not deep like a bear. Lighter, rhythmic. In the morning, I found a footprint. Human. Bare. Too small for a man. Too wide for a child. By noon, I wasn't alone. 3 hikers showed up. A couple, and a guy they said they met on the trail. She introduced herself as Mira. Her boyfriend, Leo, was quiet, always scanning the trees. The other man, Nolan, was pale and had a thick southern accent. They asked if they could rest at my shelter for a while. I said yes. I didn't want to be rude. I didn't trust Nolan. He kept touching the trees, whispering to himself. Mira noticed the footprint. I told her it wasn't mine. She laughed it off, said maybe someone wandered barefoot. But I saw her face. She didn't believe it either. Later that day, we went fishing together. Nolan stayed behind, said his leg hurt. But when we came back, the fire was out and he was gone. Only his backpack remained, and inside it, a cracked mirror, some rope, and pages from an old book written in Latin. Leo said we should leave. Mira wanted to wait. I didn't know what to do. That night, something moved near the stream. We heard the splash, then choking sounds, like someone was drowning. But when Leo ran toward the water with a flashlight, it cut out. Dead battery. Mine too, Mira screamed. Said she saw someone crouched on the far side, naked, hair covering their face, scratching at the mud. We huddled in the shelter, no fire, just silence. Then the whispering started, not from outside, from behind the shelter, like it was inside the bamboo walls. Nolan's voice, or something that sounded like him. He said my name 3 times, soft, careful, like he didn't want to wake the others. I didn't sleep. At dawn, Mira was gone. Only her shoes remained. There were no drag marks, no blood, no sound. Leo sat there, staring into the trees, eyes wide, unblinking. I asked if he was okay. He didn't respond. I'm writing this now because I don't know what's going to happen next. The forest isn't right. The trees don't move with the wind. They watch. I think they remember. And Nolan? He's back, but not like before. His skin looks wrong, like it's growing bark. His voice sounds like something echoing through wood. And he's walking toward us now. Nolan didn't walk like before. His steps were slow, deliberate, like something was guiding his body from the inside. His eyes were open, but empty, and the way he blinked too slow, too smooth felt unnatural. I told Leo to stay behind me. We had no weapons, no signal, and only enough daylight to get lost faster if we panicked. When Nolan reached the clearing, he stopped just at the edge, where the sun cut through the trees. His skin looked dry, cracked. Patches along his arms had a rough texture, like bark. He didn't speak. He tilted his head, like he was listening to something behind us. Then he smiled, not wide, just enough to feel wrong. Leo finally moved. He picked up a broken bamboo pole and held it like a spear. I told him to stop. I didn't think Nolan would hurt us, but I wasn't sure he was Nolan anymore. The air changed, colder, heavy. Then Nolan turned and walked away without a word, deeper into the trees, where Mira had disappeared. We didn't talk for a while. The fire was long dead. Our gear was scattered. Leo wrapped a jacket around his arm like a shield and watched the forest. I checked our supplies. We still had the fishing line, a small knife, and some dried food. No signal on either of our phones. Leo said he heard something while I was asleep, a voice in the stream. It wasn't Mira's. It wasn't human. It kept saying one thing: leave. I wanted to believe we were just tired, that this was some kind of shared delusion, stress, isolation. But the forest didn't feel natural anymore. The wind was too quiet. The birds were gone. Even the insects had stopped. We made the choice to move. We packed what we could and followed the stream east. It wound through thick brush and low canopies. We didn't speak much. We walked until the sun was almost gone again. That's when we found the totems. Hung from the trees with frayed rope were shapes made of twigs, bones, and torn fabric. They swayed gently, even though the air was still, dozens of them, some small like charms, others as big as people. We moved around them, careful not to touch anything. That night, we camped near a dry patch of earth between two fallen logs. We kept the fire small, took turns sleeping. I watched Leo while he dozed. His breathing was shallow. He twitched every few minutes like something was crawling over him. I saw Nolan again, just beyond the firelight, standing still. When I blinked, he was gone. Leo woke up gasping, said he dreamed of roots growing from his fingers, threading into the dirt, holding him down. I told him it was just a nightmare, but I didn't believe it. At dawn, we found fresh footprints around our camp, bare, deep in the heel, moving in a perfect circle around where we slept. Leo wanted to run, but where would we go? The forest had shifted, paths looked different, the stream had changed direction. We found ourselves back at the same clearing we started from. The bamboo shelter was still there, but it looked older, weathered, like it had been sitting for weeks. Mira's shoes were gone. In their place was a small figure made of sticks, twine wrapped tight around its chest. A clump of dark hair knotted at the head. I didn't touch it, neither did Leo. We sat in silence as the wind picked up for the first time in 2 days. It carried a scent, wet earth, and something else, like old water, like decay. I think we're not supposed to leave. That night, we didn't sleep. We heard whispering in the trees again, not one voice, many, layered over each other, breathing in patterns, some fast, some so slow, you almost forgot they were there. Leo broke first. He ran into the dark with nothing but the bamboo pole. I called after him, no answer. Only his scream, short, cut off, then silence. Now I'm alone again, but I know I'm being watched. The trees are closer than before, and I'm not sure they're trees anymore. I didn't follow Leo. I waited. Saturday still in the fading light. Back to the shelter, knife in hand. The fire was out again. I didn't bother relighting it. I knew by now it wouldn't matter. Warmth didn't stop the voices. Light didn't stop the shapes from moving just outside my sight. The forest hummed with something low, like it was breathing through the ground. Each exhale made the leaves shift. Every inhale seemed to pull me down into the earth. I tried to stay awake, but my thoughts got slow. I blinked and the sky changed. I woke cold. Dirt in my mouth. Half buried. My legs numb from the waist down. I dug myself free with shaking hands and found the shelter was gone. Not destroyed. Just gone. Like it had never been there. The clearing looked the same, but empty. No ash. No footprints. No signs of the fire ring. Not even Leo's boot tracks. But I found something else. A strip of fabric. Torn denim. The edge burned. Leo's jacket. I stood and listened. Silence. Not even wind. The kind of silence that pressed against your eardrums, that made you hear your own blood. I walked. I didn't know the direction. I followed the stream again. But it wasn't the same stream. The water was darker, almost black, and the current flowed uphill in places. I followed it anyway, because it moved, because it meant something still had direction here. By midday, I found signs of another shelter. Not mine. Not Leo's. It was older, covered in moss, half collapsed. Around it, small bones, arranged in spirals, clean, picked dry. Some animal, maybe. I didn't stop there. I kept moving. The trees got taller. Their trunks twisted as if they grew away from something, not toward the sun. The air thickened. It like copper and damp stone. My skin itched. My thoughts wandered. I saw someone ahead. A woman, pale skin. Wet hair stuck to her back. She was barefoot, walking slowly along the bank. I called out. She didn't react. Just walked deeper into the trees, vanishing behind a fold of bark. I followed. The forest opened into another clearing. This one felt wrong. The trees bent inward, circling a pit, shallow, filled with black water. Around it, more totems, taller, some with teeth, real ones. I saw my name carved into one of the trees. I didn't remember doing that. In the water, reflections moved where nothing stood. They rippled toward me. I turned and saw Leo, standing at the edge of the clearing. His eyes were closed. His lips moved, but no sound came out. His shirt was soaked through, mud up to his waist. I stepped toward him. He opened his eyes. They were completely black. He smiled, same as Nolan. Behind him, more figures moved between the trees. Slow, not hiding anymore. Some crawled, some limped. One was missing a face. I ran. Not far. Just enough to lose sight of the clearing. The forest didn't let me go far. I tripped, landed hard on stone. My head rang. When I stood, I was back where I started. The pit behind me, still, waiting. I heard Mira's voice this time. She was singing. A slow, tuneless hum. No words, just sound. I saw her standing across the water, hands clasped in front of her. Her skin was pale, almost translucent. Her hair hung straight down, soaked. She didn't blink. She raised one hand and pointed behind me. I turned and saw the shelter. It was back, but different. Too tall, too perfect. Bamboo walls stood clean and straight. No seams. The roof shimmered slightly, like water over glass. Smoke drifted from a fire I hadn't built. I should have run. I stepped inside. It was cold. Inside was larger than outside. The walls curved in on themselves. No corners, just folds. Shapes moved along the walls. Not shadows, more like skin under tension. At the center, the pit. But now it glowed. faint red. The light came from deep beneath, and above it, floating, was Leo. His arms stretched wide, head tilted back, mouth open but not breathing. Something was pulling him apart, slowly. Threads unraveling from his chest. I took one step back. The floor pulsed under my feet, like muscle. Then Nolan's voice came from behind me. He said I was almost ready. I didn't answer Nolan. I couldn't. My mouth wouldn't move. My legs were cold and stiff. It was like the air inside that shelter held me down. Not with force, but with memory. The kind that presses into your spine and makes your thoughts slow. He circled me without sound. His feet didn't touch the ground. His body was leaner now, stretched at the edges, like something had pulled him too far and the shape of him just hadn't snapped back. He whispered things I didn't understand. Words that sounded like they were meant to be felt, not heard. Each one made my skin itch under the surface. The shelter pulsed again. I heard Mira, closer, not humming this time, breathing. It came from the walls, from the pit, from the seams, in my own thoughts. Leo was still floating above the red glow. His body twisted gently, as if suspended in water. The threads pulling from him shimmered faintly, like spider silk in moonlight. They didn't go anywhere. They just drifted upward and vanished. I took one step back, and the floor shifted under my weight. It felt like something alive adjusting its spine. I caught a glimpse of my own reflection in the curved bamboo wall. My face looked thinner, paler, my eyes darker. Nolan spoke again. He said the forest was older than memory, that it wasn't a place, it was a gate, and the deeper we went, the more we gave up. He said we reached the point of forgetting. The only thing left was to surrender. I asked him what happened to Mira. His smile didn't change, but his eyes twitched. Something about that question made the shelter tremble. The red light dimmed, then surged again, brighter this time, reaching up toward the ceiling like liquid fire. He said Mira was the first to listen, that the forest called her by name and she answered. He said the only mistake she made was trying to leave. He said the forest doesn't forget. I ran. I didn't know if I was running towards something or away, just that I couldn't stay in that shelter. As I crossed the threshold, everything went silent. No wind, no sound of leaves, just the echo of my own footsteps. The world outside had changed again. Trees leaned closer together. The sky was a pale gray with no clouds. The light felt wrong, like dawn without a sun. I ran until my lungs burned. Then I collapsed beside a stream, a different one again. This water ran clear, fast, over smooth black stones. I drank without thinking, cold, sharp. It tasted metallic. I followed it downstream. Hours passed, maybe more. The trees opened slightly, and I found signs of human life. Footprints, not mine, not Leo's, small ones, bare, leading into a patch of tall grass. I followed them until I reached a stone circle. Dozens of flat rocks arranged in a spiral, centered around a pile of ash. On top of the ash sat a jar. Glass, clean. Inside was a piece of paper. I broke the seal and opened it. One word, written in deep red ink. Stay. I dropped the paper, looked around. No one. But I felt watched. Not from the trees, from beneath. The ground below was too soft. I stepped back slowly, careful not to break the stones. Every nerve in my body said run. But I knew running didn't help. I set up camp just beyond the circle, built a small fire, ate the last of the dried food. I tried not to think about the taste of the water, about the way the wind moved like breath behind my ears. I tried not to remember what Nolan said about surrender. At dusk, The fog rolled in, thick, heavy. It moved like a living thing, curling around trees and crawling across the stream. I stayed low, knife in hand, but no one came. Until just before midnight, I saw her again. Mira. She stood across the fire, face pale in the glow. She looked the same, but her eyes weren't hers. She didn't speak. She just pointed at the ground beside me. I turned and saw fresh footprints in the dirt, deep, wet, still forming. Behind me, I heard Leo's voice. He whispered my name. I didn't turn around. I knew the voice wasn't his. Not anymore. It had the shape of Leo's voice, the rhythm, the sound. But something else was inside it. Something too calm. Like it was repeating words without meaning them. The sound moved around me, circling, shifting with the fog. Mira was gone. I didn't see her leave. The fire flickered low, the wood damp and tired. The footprints beside me were still wet, still sinking. One by one they kept forming, as if someone walked in slow motion just behind the veil of the world I could see. I stood, stepped away from the fire, and walked along the edge of the stone circle, not across it. I didn't want to find out what crossing it again might do. My pack felt heavier than before, though I knew it was nearly empty. The weight wasn't from the gear, it was the air, the pressure, like the forest didn't want me light enough to leave. The fog thinned slightly, trees took shape again. The ones near the circle were burned at the roots, blackened, and split open. Whatever had happened here before me, it wasn't the first time. I kept walking until I reached the stream again. It had shifted. The bank was deeper, steeper. I followed the current uphill without questioning it. After an hour or more, I saw movement in the trees. A flicker of light. Not firelight. Something colder. Pale blue. It pulsed once, then vanished. I moved toward it. Not fast. Just enough to stay close. A clearing opened ahead, wider than any I'd seen so far. At the center stood an old wooden cabin. No lights, no smoke, just stillness. It looked abandoned, but not ruined. The door was intact. The windows boarded from inside. I circled it once. No footprints, no signs of entry, but something about it felt watched. I knocked. No answer. The door creaked open at the touch of my fingers. Inside was clean, dustless. The air was dry, unlike the rest of the forest. The floorboards didn't creak. There was no furniture except a single wooden table and a chair. On the table lay a small, bound journal. I opened it. The pages were blank, except one. It read, "If you've come this far, then the forest already knows your name." And beneath that, a symbol, a spiral with a line through it. The same one I'd seen carved into the rocks near the pit. I touched it, and the walls shifted slightly. A hum vibrated through the wood. I closed the book and turned to leave. But the door was gone. Just wall now. Seamless. I didn't panic. I backed into the far corner and sat down. The journal remained on the table. A slow wind began to whistle through the boards. Though there were no gaps, the room dimmed. Not darkness, just less. Less color. Less sound. I closed my eyes. When I opened them, the cabin was different. Same shape, but the wood was older, rotten. Mold climbed the walls. The table was gone. So was the journal. A hole had opened in the center of the floor. Narrow. Deep. From within came a soft clicking, like bone against bone. I stood and moved closer. The clicking stopped. Then I heard scratching. From below. Then breath. Slow. Wet. And a voice. Not Leo. Not Nolan. Something older. It said, "You're inside now." I staggered back. The cabin groaned. The walls pulsed once, like lungs exhaling. I saw a crack forming along the wall behind me. Pale fingers slipped through, long, crooked, nails like bark. I didn't wait. I ran straight through the wall. No resistance, just cold. Like passing through smoke. I fell into a clearing I didn't recognize. The sky above me had turned red-gray. The air was still, too still. My hands were bleeding from where I landed. I turned, and the cabin on. The forest around me had shifted again. Now it was watching me in the open. The light in the clearing didn't feel like daylight. It came from no direction, casting no shadows, but everything was illuminated in a flat, pale glow. My breath formed small clouds, even though it wasn't cold. I stayed still. Every branch around me felt like an eye. The air pressed against my chest like deep water. I scanned the tree line. Something had changed again. The trees were taller, straighter. Their bark was blackened and smooth. No leaves moved. No sound. I didn't see birds, not even insects. The entire forest felt paused. I began walking, careful not to step too loud. My boots crunched over what looked like dead moss, but the texture was wrong. Softer, thicker. Each step felt like it sank just slightly more than it should, like walking over something hollow. A low tone echoed once through the trees. No direction. Just there, inside my ribs. Like a warning, or maybe a summons. I turned and saw a trail I hadn't noticed before. It wound between the trunks like it had always been there. Part of me wanted to avoid it, but something else, deeper, insisted I follow. I moved forward slowly. The trail narrowed until it was barely wide enough to pass. On either side, thin red strings hung from the branches. Hundreds of them. No wind, but they swayed. Each string was tied to something bits of cloth, bones, teeth. Some had carvings, symbols like the one in the journal. Others were blank, frayed at the ends like they'd been cut from something alive. I didn't touch them. The trail ended at a small pool. The water was perfectly still, so clear it reflected the trees above with unnatural precision. But when I looked down, my reflection wasn't mine. Same face. Different eyes. They were white, not blind, just emptied. I stepped back. Behind me, the trees had closed in. The path was gone. From the edge of the pool, a figure rose. It wasn't fast. It just lifted from the surface without ripples. Female, barefoot, wearing something that looked like bark and wet hair. Her skin was gray and tight over her bones. Her head tilted slightly, as if listening to something I couldn't hear. She didn't speak, but I heard her. Not with ears, with memory. Images flooded in. Leo kneeling beside the stream, hands cupped. Mira watching the sky through the canopy. Nolan writing symbols into the dirt with shaking fingers. Each of them caught in a moment, paused forever in that image. As if the forest had taken pieces of them and kept those moments alive, outside time. I turned, ready to run again, but the woman's hand moved. Just once, the forest groaned around me. The pool behind her turned black. Thick veins spread outward into the earth. I stumbled back and tripped into the moss. It wasn't moss. It was hair. Tangled, matted, woven into the ground. I crawled away, heart racing. The woman hadn't moved, but her mouth opened slowly, too wide. No sound came out, just wind, cold and sharp. It carried whispers. I ran, through the trees. No trail, just instinct. The branches tore at my clothes. Shadows ran beside me, shapes without bodies. My thoughts started to splinter. I heard names. Mine, theirs, not spoken, just pressed into my mind like bruises. I didn't stop until I collapsed beneath a tree I thought I recognized. It was marked. 3 vertical lines carved into its trunk. I had passed it before. This was near the first shelter. I lay still, gasping. The air was different again. The forest was still watching, but it had let me go. For now. The sky above was starting to shift again. Not lightening, not darkening, just changing. And in the distance, I heard the stream again. But something else, too. The sound of voices. More than one. Calling out, not words. Just need. The ground was colder than before. I felt it through my spine as I lay beneath the marked tree, staring up at a sky that didn't belong to any time of day. It churned slowly in muted color, neither sunrise nor dusk. I sat up when I heard the voices again. Still distant, but clearer now. They echoed like they were inside a tunnel, but there was no tunnel here, just trees. I followed the sound, moving slow, keeping low. The forest no longer reacted to me the way it did before. It watched, but without hostility, as if curious or cautious. Every few steps I stopped, waited, listened. The voices weaved between branches. Male, female. One whispered, the other sobbed. I reached a slope where the earth had broken open. The stream cut through the soil, darker now, its surface coated in something like ash. A large tree had collapsed over the water, creating a bridge. I crossed it without looking down. On the other side, the forest changed again. This section was older. The air here smelled like iron and wet bark. There were ruins, not buildings, but stone formations, circles. Low walls half buried in moss and bone. Scattered feathers clung to roots like they had grown there. I moved between the stones, trying not to disturb them. In the center was a fire pit, cold but recently used. Ashes still shaped like logs. Beside it, a piece of fabric fluttered, a torn piece of someone's jacket. The voices had stopped. I crouched beside the pit and saw something buried beneath the ash. I pulled it out. A small bundle wrapped in deer hide. Inside were teeth. Not animal. Human. Child-sized. Each tooth was etched with a different mark. I dropped it and backed away. Something snapped behind me. I turned and saw Mira, but not how I remembered her. She stood barefoot, her skin pale and bruised, her hair tangled with bits of leaf and thread. Her eyes were open, but they didn't see me. She moved like she was underwater, slow, stiff. She stepped into the circle of stones and stopped. Her lips parted, and she whispered something I couldn't hear. Then she crumpled. I ran to her. Her body was cold, but not lifeless. Her chest rose, barely. I touched her shoulder, and her eyes flicked toward mine, focused. Just for a second, she whispered again, "Don't stay after dark." I pulled her up. Her weight was wrong, too light, as if she wasn't all there anymore. We moved together, half stumbling toward the edge of the ruins. The forest grew louder as we moved. Not with voices, with breath, the sound of it all inhaling. I found a narrow path. It was covered in thorned vines, but we pushed through. Blood warmed my hands, arms, legs. Thorns tore skin, but I didn't stop. Mira leaned heavily against me, whispering things I didn't understand. Names, symbols, directions. We reached a stream again, different from the one before. This one was warm. The mist rising from it smelled sweet, like rotting fruit. I tasted metal in my mouth. Mira stepped into the water without hesitation. She looked back at me and nodded once. She sank. Not like drowning, like disappearing. Bubbles surfaced and popped in silence. I stood at the edge, shaking. My hand still held one of the teeth from the bundle. I didn't remember picking it up again. The sky darkened. Finally, truly dark. The forest hissed, not in anger, in warning. I ran. I didn't know where. The trees blurred. My legs burned, but I kept going. I found a ridge and climbed it on hands and knees. At the top, I saw it. A new shelter. Someone had built it recently. Bamboo, banana leaves. Smoke still curled from the fire pit, but no one was there. Just the shape of a figure left in the dirt beside the bedroll. One I recognized. It was mine, but I had never been here. Not yet. The air around the shelter was unnaturally still. I stepped inside, and it felt like time bent inwards. The fire pit wasn't cold, but no flame burned. The bamboo floor creaked under my weight like it recognized me. I walked around the small space, tracing my fingers along the rough edges of the handmade structure. Whoever built this had my habits. The way the leaves were layered, the notch carved into the main beam. I had done that before, but not here. Not yet. There was a journal tucked beneath the mat. I didn't remember leaving it, but it was my handwriting on the first page. The ink was smudged. Water damage. Or tears. Some of the pages had been torn out. What was left spoke in fragments. They walk between the hours when no wind moves. Beneath the old circle, she waits to forget. He will come when the water turns warm. I flipped further. A drawing. The stone ring. The same patterns etched around the teeth. Underneath, a list of names. None I recognized. But the last line caught me. Do not return through the same path. Doesn't lead back. I closed the journal and stepped outside. Night had dropped fully, but the moon was wrong. Too close. Too red. The trees leaned together, whispering through their roots. I could feel it, underfoot. Movement beneath the soil. A sound came from the edge of the clearing, a low wet shuffle. I froze. A figure emerged from the tree line. Tall, wrapped in cloth that dragged behind it like damp moss. Its head tilted unnaturally, too far to one side. It didn't have eyes, just dark indentations where the face should have been. In one hand, it held something that dripped. I couldn't look away. My body locked. The only sound was the soft crunch of its steps across the leaves. Then it stopped. The thing lifted its head as if sniffing the air. The cloth shifted slightly, revealing something beneath the folds. Skin, stretched, tattooed in the same symbols from the ruins. It opened its mouth, not to speak, to breathe, and I heard her voice again. Mira. A whisper behind me. No breath, just sound. I turned and saw her at the edge of the trees opposite the figure. She looked the same, but less solid. A flicker, a shape in fog. She raised her hand and pointed down the slope. Run. I didn't think. I dropped the journal and bolted into the trees. The forest didn't blur this time. It pulsed. Every few feet I felt the ground shift beneath me, like something vast was moving deep under the roots. I didn't dare look back. Branches tore at my arms and face, but I kept going. Eventually the sound changed. No longer forest. Water. A wide river came into view, quiet and dark. A single canoe sat on the edge, tied to a stone with old rope. I ran to it, untied the rope with shaking hands, and pushed the canoe into the water. As I stepped in, it pulled me immediately away from the bank. Trees vanished behind me. The air turned colder. The moon still hovered too low. I couldn't hear anything now. Not the thing. Not Mira. Just the sound of the paddle I found lying inside the boat. I rowed, not knowing where. Just forward. Eventually, the river narrowed. The banks rose into steep walls, roots dangling like fingers. Fog thickened. My limbs ached. But I kept paddling until the water stilled and widened again into what looked like a lake. In the center of it, a single light blinked. A small flame. Another shelter. The canoe drifted closer to the dim light flickering ahead. It didn't dance like fire. It pulsed. A slow, steady glow. By the time the boat reached the edge of the lake, the mist had thickened around me. I could barely see the trees anymore. Only the small cabin standing at the shore, the same structure I had seen in fragments of dreams before I ever entered these woods. Its walls were made of the same bamboo I used. The roof covered in dark leaves, still wet from last night's rain. No sounds came from it, but something inside was awake. I stepped out onto the muddy bank, leaving the paddle behind. The door wasn't locked. I pushed it open slowly, expecting it to creak, but it made no sound. Inside, the cabin was bare except for a fire pit and a single object placed in the center. A mirror, framed with knotted wood, smeared and cracked across its surface, faced the door as though expecting me. The air felt heavy. My reflection stared back, but it was wrong. The version of me in the glass was older, hollow-eyed, lips chapped and dried. She mouthed something. The words didn't match what I felt. Her hands moved slowly. She pointed behind me. I turned. No one there. But I could hear footsteps outside, wet, dragging. When I looked back into the mirror, the reflection had changed. It wasn't me anymore. It was him. The tall thing from the woods, cloth still trailing, face still unreadable. But now, behind it, Mira stood again, clearer than before. She was inside the mirror, behind the figure, looking straight at me. She didn't speak, only moved her hand in a slow, repetitive gesture, as if drawing a circle. The pit in my stomach sank deeper. I stepped back and felt something hard underfoot. Another journal, bound in dark leather, no name on the front. I opened it. The pages were all blank, except one. You brought it with you. You let it see. Now it knows the shape of you. I dropped the book and backed away, but the mirror started glowing from within, not reflecting anymore, drawing me in. The wood frame vibrated. The walls of the cabin creaked like they were stretching. My vision blurred. My breath came shallow. The world outside darkened. The light narrowed to that one source. The mirror. A voice echoed from nowhere. Step through, become part, or stay and be hollowed. I couldn't move. My body locked in place. Then something wrapped around my ankle. Cold. Damp. I looked down and saw nothing, but I felt the pull. The floor split beneath me, showing the black water from the lake under the cabin. The entire structure had no foundation. It floated on roots. The reflection of the man reached toward me. His hand pressed against the glass, and my hand lifted on its own, mirroring it. When my fingers touched the surface, it didn't resist. The glass gave way like the surface of still water. The pull intensified. I screamed, not aloud, just inside my chest, the kind of scream you dream but never say. And then Mira appeared beside me, not behind the glass, beside me, real. Her hand closed around my wrist and yanked me back. I fell to the floor hard. The mirror shattered with no sound. Only light spilled from it. A blinding light swallowed everything inside the room. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on the forest floor. Morning. Birds. Wind. The normal sounds had returned. The lake was gone. The shelter was gone. The canoe. The footprints. All gone. Only a small wooden charm sat beside me, carved into the shape of a circle with 4 cuts. I stood up, shaken but alive. I turned and started walking. The sun was rising. The trees no longer whispered. The air smelled of wet earth and pine. But I knew something had changed. Back in town, I didn't tell anyone. What could I say that wouldn't make me sound mad? But I kept the charm. And sometimes at night, I wake up to see it spinning on its own. Like it's counting time. Like it's waiting. Weeks passed since I returned to town, but the sense of unease never left. The charm remained on my nightstand untouched, yet never still. It spun, even when the air was still. Sometimes it paused, mid-spin, then resumed on its own, like it was waiting for a signal only it could hear. I didn't go back to the forest. I couldn't. Not after what I saw. Not after what I felt. But part of me never left. Some nights I'd wake to scratching along the windowsill like twigs against glass, but there were no trees that close. Other nights I'd see damp footprints across the floor, though. No rain had fallen, and no one had entered. Mira never appeared again. I checked every record I could find. She wasn't listed anywhere. Not in missing persons. Not in any local paper. No one remembered her. Not even Levi, who swore he had seen someone with me that day. When I pressed him, he changed the subject and wouldn't meet my eyes. He moved out of state a week later. No warning. No goodbye. One night the charm cracked. A thin line down its center like something inside had shifted. I buried it in the woods behind my home. But the next morning it was back, resting on the center of my pillow. Clean. Unbroken. Spinning slowly in the dim morning light. I no longer sleep well. I keep the lights on. I don't go near mirrors. I've removed every one from my house. But sometimes, I still see that reflection from the cabin and other surfaces. The glass on my phone, the metal of the sink, watching, smiling faintly, as if it knows I'm still marked. Whatever was in that forest is not bound to a place. It came back with me. It follows. It waits. And every time the charm spins faster, I know something is getting closer, something unfinished, something that doesn't belong here. This story doesn't end. It lingers. And one day, it will finish what it started.